we can get started. So thank you everyone for submitting questions. We got a lot of great questions and we've kind of pulled them and we're gonna have our panelists answer them. To introduce myself, I'm Andrew. I'm the founder of the National Supply Chain Foundation, and I'm also a current student at Michigan State University studying supply chain management. I'm graduating this May, so it's gonna be bittersweet. But we host these events, these student intern panel speaker events, really to kind of bring value to you guys because recruiters are biased on their company, and we kind of have student experience or student speakers talk about their experience to kind of give you a fresh perspective on what they did at the company and everything else. So thanks for joining, and I'll pass it off to Anuj to introduce himself.
Yeah, so like Andrew said, my name is Anuj. I am also a senior at Michigan State University studying supply chain management, and I will also be graduating this May. Just to let you guys know, we do have a chat function, so that can be used for any comments, feedback, whatnot, but we also do have a question and answer box, so I'll be monitoring that. So if there are any questions that you guys think about and you want to ask that we don't get to, at the end of the Q&A panel, I'll be sure to ask these questions to the panelists. But other than that, I will pass it off to Emily to introduce herself.
Hi, y'all. I'm Emily. I'm a supply chain major at UT Austin. And this past summer, I was an intern for Target.
And then we can pass it off to Henry.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Henry Myrick. I'm currently a senior at Arizona State University, majoring in supply chain. And then I also have a minor in business data analytics. And last summer, I interned for Walmart.
And then we can pass it off to
Hi, I'm Ashwarya Madambi. I am a senior at Rutgers University, and I'm studying supply chain management and minoring in psychology. And last summer, I interned for Mars, and I'm currently interning for SNCP.
And then pass it off to Tatiana to end it off.
Hi guys, my name is Tatiana. I am currently a junior at the University of Texas at Austin studying supply chain management and management information systems. And last summer I interned with Procter & Gamble, and I'll be doing another internship with them this summer within their supply network operations and process engineering roles.
All right, sounds great. Now that all the introductions have been made, I think we can start with some of the questions that have rolled in. So I'll begin with Emily. And the first question that was asked was, what was the interview and application process like when you were trying to work for Target?
Yeah, so I applied through my university's recruit board, but I connected with the recruiter. I just emailed him beforehand before our career fair and was like, hey, I've seen Target around. I want to get to know more about the internship role. And so I had a coffee chat with him, and then talked to more people at our career fair. So made some connections there. The interview process was pretty interesting. There was only one interview and it was supposed to only be half an hour. And it started off very basic about oh, tell me about a time you worked with data. Tell me about a time you worked on a team. But my interviewer was really honest about my answers, and he gave a lot of feedback in the interview. I think he was trying to figure out how I would respond to that. So it was kind of like a curveball there, and it ended up being an hour when it was supposed to be half an hour. So I was really stressed afterwards and thought there's no way I got that because I felt like I was talking back at him when I was just defending myself. But yeah, I got the internship. So it was a non-traditional interview. But yeah, the application process was pretty easy.
And then we can pass it off to Henry for his interview and application process for Walmart.
So for mine was a little different than how I got my internship after sophomore year and then during my junior year, which was through the career fair. This one was a little different. It was through the Supply Chain Management Association on campus, and they kind of were in contact with Walmart to set up a presentation. So some of their executives came in and basically just I think there's about 4 to 6 of them, and they just went through a presentation on different areas of the business and talked about their experience and everything. And then actually after the events, I stayed after and began talking with one of them, and we talked for about an hour after the event. Just I was asking him questions, getting to know him. I had a copy of my resume on hand, so we went over that a little bit. But it was just a very casual conversation, talking about some of his previous work and stuff like that. And so actually from that conversation, he invited me to an interview the next morning because he was flying back out to Bentonville that following weekend. So going into the interview, it was definitely more like natural and not as stressful due to us talking the previous day. So it was only one interview too. So it was a quick 30-minute interview, just basic, show me a time where you showed this characteristic or something like that. So I was able to do that. But yeah, overall, the situation was very cool. It was nice to have to be able to get it straight through networking with someone and not having to go through the typical apply and then wait to hear back. So it was a very smooth and easy process that way.
Next, we can have Aishwarya.
Yeah, I think there's a pattern here. Mine was also through the career fair, but kind of interestingly, I actually went to go speak to a recruiter at Mars, and just before I had spoken to another company and I did really terrible and I felt so bad. And I went to Mars and I was like trying to make sure I can cheer myself up, really get this career fair going again. And that made it turn more into a conversation and then instead of like a pitch that people usually make. So I think that having that conversation with the recruiter made her like more comfortable too. And, I tried to throw in a joke or two in there because I was cheering myself up at the same time. And I actually got a call the next day and we had interviews, and it was only a single interview, and it was really calm and collected. And they just asked me a couple questions. Again, it was just like a family round table. Like we were just going back and forth laughing. So nothing felt like a real interview. And then I thought, there would be second round, third rounds, but that was just it. And then I got the call, and this was all in October. So it all settled really, really quickly. That was cool.
And then last, we can pass it off to Tatiana.
Yeah, so I initially, found out about and also was introduced to P&G at a career fair. So I just stopped by their table, briefly introduced myself. I was a sophomore at the time, and so I was still fairly new to like the whole recruiting scene. And I talked to the recruiter. They told me to go onto their website, apply for the program that I wanted, and then there was going to be an assessment, and I would just have to go through the process that way. And so I went onto their website. I looked at the internship application, and I accidentally applied to their internship rather than their sophomore program. And so they didn't cancel my application or anything. And so I just went through that path and took the assessment, which a lot of people don't like because it's pretty hard. But then I passed the assessment, got an interview on site, so at UT. And in that interview, I was talking to the interviewer, and she told me at the end, like, "You're so cool. Like, you're the number one on my list, but you're a sophomore, so come back next year. Thank you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I figured, okay, I'm not going to get it. And then a couple days later, I got an email saying, "We're flying you to Cincinnati to do an on-site interview there." And so then went through that process, did a short case with a group of other people, and everyone else that was at Cincinnati trying to interview for a job was either a senior or already getting their master's. So I had to try and like impress being a sophomore and not really knowing anything about supply chain, but having to go through this case and provide at least some knowledge. So then after that, I had another interview with a panel, and then I finally got it. So it was a bit of a long process, and I think that's why a lot of people don't like applying with P&G, because it's a bit of a pain at the end of it, but definitely rewarding, and I think it was a lot of fun. It was also my first time interviewing with them, or first time interviewing at all was with P&G. So definitely a weird first experience, but I liked it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Great to hear everyone's kind of interview pathway to their own internship in the company. And it was great to hear kind of a pattern of seeing that comfortability at first and personalizing that connection in the beginning. You know, typically some students really think at the beginning it's super professional, but it's really to make that connection one-on-one first. And then once you kind of hit that, then you can go through the interview process. So awesome to hear that. And then we'll move on to the next question, which is, what were some challenges that you experienced during your internship last summer? So to begin, we'll have Henry talk about his.
So one of my biggest challenges at first was the project that I received to work on during the summer was very broad and kind of open as far as directions that I could go in and resources and tools that I could use. So it was a little overwhelming at first as far as figuring out what exactly to do and what was the project even meant to do in the first place. But once I was able to learn and figure that out, I got a little bit more comfortable. It was definitely kind of nervous and not as confident going into my first corporate internship. Felt a lot of pressure at first, but once I was able to meet more people, learn about the company more and get more comfortable, I was able to kind of like take a seat back, find out what problem we we're actually trying to solve, and then kind of create a bigger picture plan as far as a way to keep myself on track throughout the summer, as far as milestones that I wanted to complete and just keeping like a daily note tab of things that I wanted to accomplish and get done each week. So I would say that was easily one of the biggest challenges outside from the virtual aspect, but really just being able to make decisions more quickly and follow through with them. And when you're going through such like a long project throughout the duration of the summer, you're going to come across problems throughout the way, but really just having a agile mindset and framework and being able to adapt and make changes along the way.
Yeah, that's awesome advice, Henry. And I think to add on that real quick is to, like you mentioned, like setting objectives and goals in the beginning of such a large project will kind of help you along the way too. So that's awesome. And then we'll pass it off to Ashwarya.
Yeah, so I think my main challenges, I can split them into two categories. The first one is networking, especially since it was virtual. That just made it 3 times harder, just because one, you didn't really know anyone going in. Two, it was really hard to find who was where because you'd have to ask your manager who would recommend people. And most part, it was you emailing saying, hey, can I put 15 minutes on your schedule? Can we like grab a cup of coffee? And some people don't really want to turn their cameras on. They're not too comfortable with it. So making that genuine connection with someone is a lot more harder over the screen for sure. So that was one thing. And in my experience, we had 3 supply chain interns, but I didn't find out about having 2 other supply chain interns until halfway through the program. So I feel like definitely one of the big problems was getting to meet everyone and just kind of expanding yourself as much as possible on the internet, first of all. The second one was maybe like a personal problem, but I didn't really enjoy training or like the learning process because the learning curve is very steep, first of all, because you're coming into a 3-month program on a project. You got to learn really quickly. And doing this in like really small meetings and watching re-recordings and trying to do it on your own is very difficult, but really rewarding at the same time once you end the project. So while they were challenges, you kind of feel really proud of yourself at the end because you really taught yourself everything at the end of the day.
Yeah, those are definitely some major challenges. And to go off the networking one, I think it's really hard given a virtual format, but I think also it's difficult for students to take that initiative. So it's really that first step in taking that initiative and sending that email out and setting a calendar time to talk with them is kind of that first step. And most likely they'll say yes since you're an intern, so you do have that power, but those are some great challenges and appreciate you talking about those. And then Tatiana, do you want to talk about your challenges for your internship?
Yeah, so there's definitely the challenge of going into a completely new company. You have no idea really like what the format is like, especially within the division that you're working in. And so a lot of it was that those first couple of weeks of figuring everything out about what they do, how things function. And also I had a manager who it was her first time having an intern. So she didn't really know exactly how to guide me. And so we had 5 projects that we had to work on throughout the span of the summer. And I just remember her kind of briefly telling me what the projects were and kind of what was expected of me, but I didn't really know exactly how to tackle them and how long it was going to take me to complete those projects. And so I kind of just started them off by going down the list when I really should have started off like backwards, because the bottom, like my last projects were the ones that took me the most time. And so I didn't get to finish one of my projects. And so I think definitely looking back and seeing how I could have done better and how I could have just improved the experience for myself, I would have really sat down and just slammed my manager with a bunch of questions about everything that she expected of me, because I don't know if she kind of assumed that I already knew what I was supposed to do, but I didn't. So definitely I just should have just laid it all out and said, like, I have no idea what you're talking about in this. Like, I'd tell it to me like I'm a kindergartner. So I think that was the biggest challenge overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and definitely communication with the manager is super important in the beginning. So that's great to hear, and how you overcame the challenge as well. So thanks, Tatiana. And then last but not least, Emily.
Yeah, my biggest challenge was pretty similar to Tatiana's. I was hired as an inventory analyst intern, which is under inventory management at Target. But because of COVID, they were very overwhelmed. So they opened up the whole supply chain to interns. So I became a supply chain strategy intern under network planning. And the people I was working with, they worked in supply chain, but they all had like computer science backgrounds, and they had never had an intern before. So at first they like gave me my project, and it was like very like basic, because I didn't know what to really like give a business student. They didn't know like if I would be able to like understand the extent of what they were doing. And like they didn't really know what type of communications they should be having with me, what type of meetings I should be sitting in. So at first it was a little hard to like figure out where I fit into my team. But like by halfway through, I was able to be more open with my manager and my mentor, and like ask to be on meetings that I was just like interested in, and to be like, okay, I want to add more to my project, because like I do have a technical background, and like advocate for myself. Also, I felt like I dealt with a little bit of like imposter syndrome talking to the people on my team, because they all had like MBAs or masters in computer science, and I was like, I'm just a supply chain major. So like understanding that, okay, like I do add value to my team, and like they were really impressed by just my like domain knowledge, which I thought was cool, because I was like, oh, well, like that's my whole major, but they were like trying to learn it when they got that job, because they didn't have that background. So I thought that was cool. And then also my project was like standardizing a process, where they worked with a bunch of different teams across network planning, engineering, transportation, and more. And so talking to those different teams and understanding like they all had a different viewpoint of what they were talking about and had different terminology for the same things. And so I would like come with a bunch of information from everybody, and I didn't realize that some things were exactly the same as others. And then also everyone had like their own like view of how my project should be and how they wanted it to like go, because this was going to be a document that was used by all these teams. So understanding how to like put that all together and prioritize what's like most important was a challenge, but my manager helped me a lot in that. So like bringing that to her and like asking how she like would prioritize those things really helps. So definitely that open communication.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess for my first internship as well, I was a supply chain major. So my first role was a quality engineer intern, and I thought up until like 2 weeks before my start date, I thought I was supposed to be a supply chain intern, but it turns out I was a quality engineer, and I have never taken an engineering class before, so it was definitely a big learning curve. So I guess that really is a general consensus that, you know, working in your first corporate internship, or even during your time as an undergrad working through all these different companies, it's definitely a big learning curve to work with different teams, new managers and such. But along that note, I guess the next question that we can ask is, what was your best experience working at your company? And we can start with Aishwarya.
Yeah, thank you. So I think easily the best experience was the famous end of project presentation that you give to all the higher executives. Something I like to think about myself is I'm like a stickler for like pretty good presentations. So I try to make sure that they're best that I could possibly make them. So I was really excited to give mine, but I was also like genuinely kind of scared that maybe I'm missing something, or I'm like, it's going to be pretty lackluster to them because they know all this information, but I'm trying to like kind of upgrade what they got. So it was definitely pretty scary, but at the same time, when I got the feedback at the end, they were like, yeah, that was amazing. Like, we didn't even know, like, there was so much that we could fix at that time. And a lot of the implementations that I said they were going to go on after I'd left. And I thought that was the coolest thing, because something that I did had a lasting impact. And I think that would be the best experience, really sharing what I worked on for 3 months and then having them say, yeah, we're going to take this for maybe the next couple of years too, because this is like what we need. That's really the best.
Yeah, definitely standardizing a process and having the company say that, hey, we're going to implement these cost savings or whatever you did, and for the future, I think that's really beneficial for an internship. And then next we can move on to Tatiana.
Awesome. Yeah. So I have two basically, and I know that Emily can back me on this. In our supply chain classes at UT, we do not learn anything about programming softwares like Power BI, Tableau, NIME, any of that. And so when I started off the internship, they were telling me, okay, so you're going to create a scorecard basically from scratch in Power BI. And I was like, okay. And so then I just got to work and I was like YouTubing how to use Power BI, how to like transfer data, all of this stuff. And so I think at the end of the experience, it was super rewarding. And I think that that was like one of the best outcomes that I had, was learning how to use Power BI, NIME, Tableau, like Excel way better than I did beforehand. And so then I honestly, granted, I think I learned way more in that one summer internship than I did like previously within my classes at UT. So I definitely felt like I progressed a lot. And then the other like best thing that I got from the internship was my last day. After my final presentation, my manager had actually secretly behind my back created a video with all of the other people in our division, and like the transportation division, and they all just made short little goodbye clips like thanking me and saying that they loved having me there. And so they played the whole video for me, and I was like trying to hold back tears. Like, it was so nice of them. And then I still keep in touch with my manager. We still text pretty often. She's updating me on like how they're using my scorecard, how they're using all of my everything that I created. So I think definitely like the end of the experience, when everything just comes together, is so amazing.
Yeah, I think also with my experience at Michigan State, I think the only really data visualization tool I learned was Tableau, and it was very minimal. But I know from my internships as well, like using those data visualization tools is really important. So that's great. And then next we can move on to Emily.
Yeah, Tatiana is a wizard in Power BI now. I'll just say that. My best experience probably goes a little bit along with that too. Because of the team I was on, I was able to sit in like some very high level meetings about like the future of supply chain at Target and some really cool supply chain initiatives, which I think was really unique to supply chain internship, because they were all with our sister team, which was the decision sciences team. So in school, you learn about very like small scale ways to solve problems, but in a huge company, like you can't just put things on Excel solver. So they like walked me through all the algorithms they were using, which was really cool to see and like understand the technicality behind like these supply chain problems. So that was probably my best experience.
And then we can move on to Henry.
Yeah, mine, outside of the overall learning experience, mine would definitely be the final presentation of my projects during the last week of the internship. Definitely spent a lot of time putting it together, making sure everything looked right, having other people check over it. And then we get to the presentation day, which is about 25 to 30 different executives. So I was definitely very nervous and scared going into it. And on that actual morning, my neighborhood had an internet outage like during the exact time of the presentation time slot, and I was up first. So I ended up having to use my iPhone hotspot to give my presentation, which was pretty bad. I was like cutting in and out and like breaking up the whole time. I had to like redo a couple slides twice. But overall, the feedback still ended up being good. And I was actually able from that to schedule a separate time the next day with the VP and SVP of transportation, which is very exciting and cool to be able to have that one-on-one dialogue and conversation with them. And I say all that to say that it showed really like how much the people that I work with actually cared about what you're doing, for them to actually listen to your recommendations and solutions and actually implement some of your recommendations as well, was definitely one of the most rewarding experiences that I've had so far. Actually, it was very exciting to hear that after my internship, that the cross-functional team that I was working on would still be continuing the project that I was working on, as far as to either find the budget for it or continue working what we currently started on. So that alone was exciting in itself. But overall, yeah, it was very cool to see that the work that the interns were doing actually mattered to them, and that they were actually listening to the feedback as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you have great students, when their best experience is learning so much in their internship, and kind of the final presentation and seeing their project and their work go a long way. So appreciate everyone talking about their best experience so far. And then the next question that we have is, from the companies you worked at, what was your favorite part about the culture, and kind of what do you look for in culture moving forward? And then first we'll have Tatiana speak about that.
Yeah, could you repeat it really quick?
Yeah, so from the companies you worked at, what was your favorite part about the culture, and what do you look for in culture, moving forward in your job search?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was kind of luck for me to stumble upon P&G. And I think initially I was looking at a lot of like pharmaceutical companies and a lot of like construction and just random companies that I really didn't have a lot of interest in. And I think my values at the end of the day didn't really align with theirs. And so then a friend introduced me to P&G, and I just went through the process like, yeah, sure, I need an internship. Like, I'll just go for it. And then now that I've kind of opened up that idea and like looked more into my values and seeing if they align with the company that I'm working for, I've come to the realization that like P&G and my values align so well that I don't really like I don't know of another company that I would want to work for that brings me so much joy working for them. And the culture definitely is just very embracing of like culture and diversity, and I experienced a lot of that when I was there. Like before I even started my first day, I was already getting messages from the Hispanic group saying like, come to our events, we would love to have you, like come like to, they called it cafecitos, which is basically just a coffee chat, and so with all the Hispanic Latinx group, and so that was really amazing to see. And I think just everybody was so kind. And when I was talking to like my manager's manager, they were treating me as if had been there for 20 plus years. Like we just started having a conversation. They were like, oh, so you like to ski? And I was like, yeah, I like to ski. And so then we just started to talk about skiing, and it wasn't like they were looking at me like an intern. They were looking at me like an employee. And so that was really nice. And that's something that I value, and I'm going to like continue to value that as I look at companies.
Awesome. Yeah, very inclusive and friendly. So great to hear P&G's culture. And then moving forward, Emily, do you want to talk about your experience and culture at your company?
Yeah, I think my favorite thing about Target's culture was their commitment to give back to the community. There was one intern event where they sent everyone little cards and envelopes and like a pack of crayons to make like cards to drop off to a nursing home, which I thought was so cool. And we all had like a little Zoom call where we were making our cards. And then we also had an event where we like made snack packs to give to like donate. They also have a very like people focused culture, so big like commitment to diversity, which I really value. And I think like that people focused culture about like developing people and like making sure that they're comfortable is something that I mainly look for in a company. I want like the people to be excited that they're working there and like excited for who they're working with. Like on some teams, you can just really tell if like they all get along and they're all like friends and want to and like value other people's ideas. So I think that's what I look for.
Yeah, that's awesome and great to hear. The giving back to community, super heartwarming as well. So that's awesome to hear from Target. And then Henry, do you want to talk about yours?
Yeah, mine's pretty similar. Everyone was so excited and happy to be a part of the company, especially the team that I worked on. They've all been working together for like 10 to 15 years. So just seeing that, how devoted everyone was to working and how friendly and open everyone was definitely helped me in my experience during the internship. Everyone was so willing to teach you things that they've learned, introduce you to other people, allow you to see other areas of the company and the business. So that was very important for me and something that I definitely actively look for. And as well as the diversity and inclusion as well. They're very proactive, even like during my first week there, connecting me with other African-American leaders within the company, as far as assigning mentors and really creating a cohesive group that you can learn and gain advice from. So that was a very big part of my experience there. And yeah, I would say those were two of the biggest things that I kind of gravitated towards and was very appreciative of it.
Awesome. It seems like there's a common theme of in the beginning, the first thing you said, which is the having the other employees kind of help, you learn and kind of grow as an individual, career wise or personally. So it's awesome to hear. And then last but not least, Ashwarya.
Yeah, so I actually thought it was kind of funny because I think freshman and sophomore year in Rutgers, they're always taught like culture is like the main word you're always asking during interviews. That's the question, that's your go-to, that's what's going to get you in the door. And everyone kind of just throws it around. And I didn't really know the importance of it. I kind of looked down and I was like, you know what, I'll use it if I have to. But it wasn't until I worked at a couple of my internships I realized how important culture really, really was, because I've had internships where I've worked in really serious, fast-paced places, and I just don't think that I really grow as well as I did when I worked at Mars. They have a really family-like culture, and they call themselves like the Mars family. So I can't even emphasize that more. We had like, Fridays when all the interns would get together and we'd play like, I think it was called Categories, and we would do Pictionary, any kind of game that we could do. Sometimes they had movie nights. So like if you were free, everyone would get on at one time and have movies. So it was always trying to make sure that we always had some place where we could meet and talk. And we even had a group meet. And I thought it was so funny that we had an intern group meet chat. And so anyone would put in any questions they had. And it was just so resourceful. And anytime you needed something, there was always like 10 helping hands. You just had to go and choose one. So I think that one is super important. And, people thrive in really different cultures. So while some serious, fast-paced cultures can help other people, you need to find out what is good for you, because that's how you're going to grow as a person, either personally or professionally. And that's really important to find out going forward. So that's one thing with internships that's really great, because you can have multiple and it's not like a commitment like a full-time job yet.
Yeah, I think it's great about like all the resources, inclusivity, all the affinity groups that the companies provide you. I think really culture is really big role for most people. So I'm glad that the companies that you guys interned with are really trying to give you the best experience for that. Moving on to the next question. So this is more career advice related. So I'll begin with Emily on what helped prepare you the most for this role. And I know you had, a data analytics role, not really supply chain for Target, but I guess what helped you prepare the most, like from UTA or any other experiences?
Yeah, I'd say there wasn't like anything set that really prepared me. Probably classes prepared me really well. Like my supply chain classes gave me the domain knowledge I needed. I have a certificate in computer science, which helped me like understand a little bit more of what my team was doing. For my project, I think that it's more like project management that I really needed to like prepare myself on. But yeah, I don't really have a good answer for that one. I think it's more just like with experience. Once I get like thrown in another situation like that, I'll like be able to draw on that experience as well. So experience would have prepared me.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to Aishwarya for her role at Mars.
Yeah, I think it's actually kind of funny because I had a call with my manager a couple weeks before my internship started, and I asked her the same question. I was like, "What do you think I need to do to be ready?" And she was just like, "Honestly, there is nothing you can do besides mentally prepare yourself." And it wasn't like she was going to put me through this grueling hell of a project. It was more that come in confident that you can do the best you can, because there is always that idea that you're not going to do as good as can, and the whole what Tatiana was saying earlier with not knowing programs that they're going to use, not knowing how the company functions, because everyone there already knows and you're starting from the bottom up. So she just said, really be confident about what you're doing, because we chose you for your skills and what you already know. So you already came prepared. So there isn't anything you need to do further. Just make sure you have the mindset and the heart to go into it. And that's all you really need. And I think that calmed me down a lot more. And she was just like, yeah, you don't need to learn Power BI just yet. You'll learn in time. Don't worry. So yeah, definitely just set your heart to it.
Yeah. And I can attest to that as well. Like all the technical skills and supply chain knowledge, going to an internship, definitely lacking because we're still students, right? So it's all about that mindset, the positivity, and kind of the self-learner aspect going into it and being kind of learning on the spot, pivoting in any direction that, that faces challenges. So that's awesome to hear from both of you guys. And then we'll kind of give Tatiana and Henry a different career advice question, which is how has your college coursework been relevant in landing these internships? And if not, what do you think helped you landed those internships? And then we'll have Tatiana go first.
Yeah, so I think we've kind of detailed this a little bit, but at least with me, I had only taken one supply chain class before my internship, and looking back on it, I still can't necessarily say that helped me at all. Maybe it did, like when it came to working with teams and that kind of thing, but as long as like coursework goes, it was very different from anything that I was working on in my internship. So, I mean, now I've taken a couple more supply chain courses, and I think they might be leaning a little bit more towards what I would be working on in an internship or career-wise. But still, it's like what you learn coursework-wise is very technical and very like specific to certain situations. And at least with us, a lot of those situations are like, I'm not really sure I'm ever going to work on something like this. And so I think overall, YouTube, Google is going to be your best friend. Like, at least with me, even when I'm like halfway through my career, I think I'll still be using YouTube and Google just to look up like how to do things. And so I think that helped me a lot. But otherwise, I don't know, just teamwork, talking to your peers, being able to talk to your professor when you have problems and you need to better understand something, like that's where you really learn how to deal with people. And I think that helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And going off that, like coursework definitely gives you a good foundation, but it's like asking those questions when you're stuck at something or searching it up yourself to learn kind of furthers that. So that's great. And then Henry.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like As far as the actual internship itself, you just learn by doing it and gaining that experience. Before the coursework, for me personally, I feel like it just allowed me to learn how to, I guess, talk about supply chain in general with other people like recruiters or like during my interview, and basically just knowing which questions or like what kind of questions to ask. I would say that probably is the biggest role that actual coursework has played outside of just other knowledge that I've gained throughout college. But yeah, that would easily be the biggest thing. It's just knowing certain concepts and vocab to be able to use and have like, I guess, intelligent conversation with someone about supply chain.
Like the supply chain buzzwords you learn in all your
Yeah.
coursework. So utilizing those definitely, you know, during the internship process or interview process, as well as in the future as well. So awesome. And then, yeah, Nuj, you want to take this one?
Yeah, so this is the last question that came in. So the question is, what is your biggest piece of advice for students looking to get experience in supply chain? And we can begin with Emily.
I would say just be open to opportunities. Don't be afraid to like advocate for yourself and what you want to learn. Sometimes it can be hard to find the role that you know that you want to go into or like you're interested in, because people use like buzzwords all the time and you're like, what does that actually mean? But don't be afraid to like reach out to people on LinkedIn, set up informational interviews, and like actually understand what like roles that entail, what parts of supply chain you're interested in, and just like go out and ask for opportunities even if they aren't there, because you never know what you'll find.
Yeah, definitely being open to new experiences, definitely something that people should take into consideration. And then we can pass it on to Henry.
Yeah, I would say to be very assertive when applying and reaching out to people, be very tactical with it. As far as like, don't be discouraged about rejections or no answers. It only takes one acceptance to give you that opportunity to get your foot into the door and gain some experience. And you only get better with each interview that you do. And as far as making connections, one of the biggest things I learned from my mentor over the summer was as far as being very intentional with networking. So something that I've been doing is like keeping track of who I talk to, maintaining their contact info, scheduling either bi-weekly or monthly meetings with them, just to still create, have like genuine, real conversations, but just be more organized and have some type of schedule with it so you can continue to grow and establish those connections and allow your network to work for you to help land that role that you're potentially looking for. And yeah, I agree, as well as just being open to whatever opportunities that come your way. There's so many different jobs and positions within the supply chain field. So having an internship is very important, holds a lot of weight and power. So you can find out what kind of jobs you do and don't like, what companies you're interested in. So overall, I think it's a great industry to pursue and every company needs it. And COVID has only amplified that for sure.
Yes, definitely. Virtual experience has been definitely something that's been challenging, and it really shows how important supply chain is for all companies. So next we can move on to Shwarya.
Yeah, okay. So it's gonna be really basic. Go to your career fair. Like I cannot even emphasize that enough. It doesn't matter if you're unprepared. It doesn't matter if it's virtual, if it's small, if you don't even know what you're gonna say, just go. I went when I was a freshman, and if anyone knows anything, no one's hiring a freshman. Nobody wants a freshman, but I still went. I wanted to see what I was gonna get myself into in the future. And I'd actually spoke to a recruiter there and he was like, yeah, you're really great. But I can't hire you. So come back next year. And I was like, well, at least I know what I need to improve on and what I don't. And going forward, I can figure out what I need. And just as they say, learning on the job, I think it's like learning on the career fair. As you talk to people and you listen how other people talk and how they move, you can kind of follow suit. You can change, tweak, and improve as you go. And I think that's the only way you're going to get comfortable talking to a recruiter instead of like seizing up and saying everything that you've ever accomplished in your life, because you don't want to bore them either. So definitely go to your career fair. And it doesn't even matter if your resume is not that polished, because you'll learn, the recruiter will even give you feedback if they really love you, and they'll tell you like how to polish your resume. So that's like the best place where you can learn about yourself and you can learn how to, ace the game.
Yeah, and I would say even if you already accepted like an internship role, I think even talking with different companies and hearing the roles that they have available, the feedback that they can provide you, I think it gives a better perspective on maybe what you want moving forward. So even if you do have an internship, I think I would still recommend going to going to any career fair that pertains to your industry, and I think you'll get really good advice and feedback. And last, we can move on to Tatiana.
Yeah, so just kind of to bounce off of like everything that you guys have all been saying is when you go to your career fair, like be open to talking to anybody, yes, and have your list of the companies that you know you'd be interested in. But starting off as a freshman and sophomore, take advantage of the fact that like you're not stressing for an internship yet. You're just kind of like chilling basically. And so I'd say start off and go to the companies that you know you're not interested in, but play it as if you are interested. And that way, if you mess up, you know like how to improve for the companies that you actually want to work for. So you don't like mess up with them and then ruin that opportunity for yourself. And so I definitely recommend doing that. And then also what worked out for me a lot was in the career fairs, I volunteered. And so at the start of the career fairs, we would go around helping people set up their tables, helping people like put out all of their pamphlets and just the recruiters and kind of have a little conversation, maybe introduce yourself. And then throughout the career fair, go around and actually drop off your resume, like do your little elevator pitch, whatever it is, and introduce yourself more formally as like, I'm interested in having an internship with you. And then at the end of the event, most career fairs will go around with like a goodie basket or water or something to give to the recruiters. And that way, at the end of the day, they've seen your face 3 times versus the one time that like somebody else just went and dropped off their resume. Like they're gonna forget about that person most likely. But you, if they see your face 3 times, then they won't be forgetting about you, especially in casual situations where you're just being kind, generous, and thankful, and also in a professional manner. So I think that helped a lot. And then just be open-minded. Like a lot of the positions that you're like, oh, I want to do supply chain, and like that's it. I'm a process engineer now. Like I don't even know how I got here, but like to different positions that you didn't think you would be like even qualified for, because you most likely will be. Like everyone's kind of qualified because we're all kind of starting on a fresh page in an internship. So do that.
Yeah, that was all amazing advice, and appreciate you guys again for giving. We're talking about your experience and providing any advice to the attendees, and also since we record this, we'll send it off to our community as well. So last but not least, if you guys want to jot down or put in the chat your LinkedIn or any social media to connect with each other or anyone else, feel free to do that in the chat. And then if there's not any more Q&A questions in this live video, then we'll end it off early and you guys can enjoy your Fridays. I know it's going to be, I know there's great weather down there, so that'll be awesome. But yeah, feel free to drop in the chat your socials and everything, and then I'll drop. Also, if you guys want to join the Slack channel or any of our other links, I'll drop the link tree for you guys to look at as well. But Anush, you have anything to add?
No, I just would like to thank all the panelists for being here for the 50 minutes and answering all these questions. I think it was really great advice, like Andrew said, and I'm hoping that whoever listens to this and whoever was present for this panel will be able to take all the advice that they learned for recruiting season next fall, or if they're looking for internships right now, I'm hoping that this will be useful as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And yeah, with that being said, I think we can end it here. Do you guys have any last words from the panelists?
No. Thanks for
Awesome.
having us.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
no problem. Awesome. Okay. Have a great day, everyone.
All right. See you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.